welcome to the Badger Politic. I am Scott Stearns.
Oh, good evening, Scott. Sorry, I just had to get here a little late.
What happened?
I had to drive. I was coming back from Madison, and I had to drive through, I think it's called now the Scott Walker Zoo Interchange.
Oh, the interchange formerly known as the Zoo Interchange?
Yeah. Well,
has it been under construction for like 10 years
about
now?
10 years. 9 years ago, Scott Walker was trying to blame Mayor Barrett's support for light rail for the reason that the interchange wasn't being built quick enough, even though Barrett was the mayor of Milwaukee and the interchange is a state and federal thing.
Yeah.
So now, after 7 years of being governor, Walker still hasn't figured out how to finish it. It looks like there's no end in sight until about 2020, maybe.
Yeah, but we're gonna pay for Foxconn to have like dedicated lanes on 994 north of Chicago.
The busiest interchange, though, in the state, one of the busiest in the Midwest and the country, really, is but by far the busiest in the state, is unavailable. It took me some time. We could have done a podcast in the time I was driving around there. Probably could have done two. Well, so what's that?
So we probably could have done two.
We could have done two. Yeah, exactly. So there you go, Scott Walker. He promised to get that interchange done. And who knew it would take more 2.5 terms?
Yeah,
to do it.
We'll see if it's still. It could just be the Scott Walker interchange, and it's just perpetually under construction.
That should be his re-election. Vote for Scott Walker, third term. I promise I'll get that road done.
Or maybe that's the jobs program. We'll have perpetual construction jobs because we'll just be working on.
They had enough construction jobs. They boosted the transportation funding. They built lots of roads people don't need, including this Foxconn road.
But I'm just saying,
we don't have the busiest intersection in the state available for use. We haven't for 10 years.
We could just make this interchange. Permanent construction jobs tied to the Zoo Interchange.
Right. Literally by the time they're done, we're going to have to start doing the Marquette one again.
Probably. It's just going to be a constant rotation.
It's just ridiculous. Marquette will be almost 20 years old. Well, maybe not quite, but it'll be halfway through at least.
Yeah,
I think, or close to it.
So this is episode 36 of our
How about
podcast.
This Scott Walker 2018.
I'll
get that done. I'll get that at least 3/4 done through my third term. I don't know.
And then I'll run for president.
Right. Good luck getting to the inauguration.
Right. So yes,
if he doesn't make it, then so be it. Maybe he gets stuck in Greenfield or on Greenfield Avenue.
Yeah.
All right.
So episode 36 underway here.
124.
So we've been going for the better part of the year now.
Now, we will talk about this, but this may be the last time you'll ever find us on the World Wide Web.
Yeah. So net neutrality, FCC voted. Was it 3-2 today?
We'll talk about it more later. Let's go. Yeah. But just enjoy this podcast.
Right.
And bookmark it, save it, download it. Because don't expect to find it on the web.
Yeah, your ISP may throttle us. And it'll be like a dial-up connection to be able to download.
So let's talk about what we want to talk about, which is not, we're not breaking anything here, but Alabama is not sending a person who believes that the country was better than the Civil War, and who may or very likely may enjoy dating young teenagers.
Yeah.
Got kicked out of the mall.
He did not make it through. Dates. And we have Doug Jones.
Doug Jones, Roy Moore lost.
Former U.S. Attorney
Doug Jones won. Alabama, which is, I think, the reddest state in the country.
It's up there. It really is really up there.
And other than Utah.
I mean, and I guess we'll get into the nitty gritty, but what?
If there was any state that could elect a Roy Moore, Alabama was that state. And Doug Jones stopped him.
Is this not Exhibit A in terms of backing up what Howard Dean referred to as the 50-state strategy? That we should be competing everywhere. We should be building up state parties everywhere and investing in quality candidates and all those kinds of things.
Right.
I mean, this really backs that up.
So Doug Jones, I mean, the one thing I want to talk about is that Doug Jones, though, actually deserves some credit here.
Absolutely.
Like most of the coverage is that, Moore was a pedophile or accused pedophile.
Flawed candidate,
and of course he was going to lose. And then there's a little bit, Trump's unpopular. 538 did a good breakdown on this. I refer to them a lot. But, basically split it into thirds. If you look at it, Alabama is 28 points more on the net conservative than the country as a whole. That would mean that, say, in Wisconsin, where Hillary lost by 1 point, where she won the national election by 2 points, so Wisconsin would be net negative three more points Republican than the country as a whole. Alabama's 28 points more Republican.
Sure.
So it's in other words, a net 25 points more Republican. That the margin will be 25 points more Republican than Wisconsin in a given election.
Yeah.
And I think that's a consistent average, actually. So what you had here was the Democrat winning by about 2 percentage points. And the question is, how did that happen? So the Democrat overperformed by a net of 30 points in the margin.
Remarkable.
Right. And Silver breaks it down as 10-10-10, really. And it sounds simplistic, but it's actually about right. 10 points because there's anti-Trump. 10 points flawed candidacy. 10 points, Jones is a really good candidate.
He was.
And so if one of those
if he was just average Democrat, he wouldn't have won. He was. Right. I mean, yes, it was good timing that he was running against a guy like Roy Moore. Mm-hmm. However, yeah, he deserves a ton of credit.
Or Jones did. Not only was Jones a good candidate, but Jones' campaign seized on the right things. I mean,
yes.
So he seized on a large black vote. Now,
he had a huge African American turnout. I mean, part of that was he had the resume having prosecuted cases that against white supremacists.
So he had a record of doing something black people might support.
Yes.
Which, I mean, all people who have a fair mind should support.
Of course. But one would hope.
But he had a record of standing up for communities. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, the black vote actually outperformed Obama's black vote in Alabama.
Right. Now, you could say, well, that wasn't a swing state then, so there's less interest. But
sure,
the long and the short of it is, yeah, right. There's been all this talk that nobody can remake, no Democrats can remake the Obama electorate. They shouldn't even try. They should try to persuade.
That's
wrong.
Of that. Yeah.
And Virginia also said no to that.
Yep.
Too. In Virginia, you were running against a less animated. You had a less strong Democratic candidate, frankly, mm-hmm. and a less bad Republican candidate. The one thing you had in Virginia was you had a demographic trends.
Yes.
Much more, I mean, it has a lot of the kind of almost up northeast coast culture there in large parts of Virginia, which is not true in most southern states.
Right.
But, highly educated state, it's a very different place than Alabama.
For sure.
But that said, what we're seeing is victories, and especially when you think about Virginia, where it went all the way down the line to the state legislature, where they're now at a 50-50 split, I believe, mm-hmm. is where they left. And my point about bringing this up in Virginia is you don't just have to have an Obama running or even a white candidate who has made a career of prosecuting Klansmen. That helps. That's good.
Absolutely.
We should fight for those kind of candidates.
Capitalize on that, yeah.
However, short of that, good turnout strategies that actually really maximize it and try to find the people that aren't in the voter file, that aren't tracking well, or try to communicate with them and register, register and turn out new voters, help them get ID compliant if it's required.
I mean, we can get into the numbers, but the turnout was remarkable. And what does it say that they were able to achieve the level of turnout in a state like Alabama with all the voting restrictions that are in place in a place like that? So those things can be overcome. It's just it requires maybe just a significantly more dedicated effort. Yeah.
Right. And the Dems, and part of it was, thank goodness the Dems wound up having to throw in as late as they did. They threw in $10 million in 6 weeks, which probably in a state like Alabama, just knowing what I know, it's a little smaller than Wisconsin.
Yeah.
In 6 weeks, there probably isn't even enough TV time to buy.
Yeah.
That to cover $10 million. I mean, it's pretty, because other advertisers, not non-politicians, will have bought up that time.
Sure.
And especially if you don't have contracts out several months out.
You also had Doug Jones, just canvassing the entire state, going county to county. Meanwhile, Roy Moore was, off in hiding, essentially, not campaigning and not debating.
What I would argue is probably a good chunk of that $10 million didn't just go into TV ads.
No.
Or
it was
even
boots on the ground.
Ads. Right. And so boots on the ground can pay off.
Yes.
And I think what they did was they said, what can we do beyond just what we see in the voter file? How can we have a killer turnout out of Montgomery County?
Yeah.
And Jefferson County near Birmingham. Montgomery near Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery County was really a catalyst.
Yes.
I mean, you had massive turnout there compared to what you had in 2016, I believe, at least on the margins.
Yeah.
The press. And let's also, not just credit Roy Moore, but let's credit the people, the voters, and particularly black voters for recognizing how important it was, but overcoming the restrictions and actually turning out at probably a higher percentage of their population than whites did, or at least equal. And 96% voted for Jones.
Yeah.
Better yet, though, black women.
Yes.
98% to 2.
Yeah.
They made up 17% of the electorate.
I mean, the black women are the reason why the majority of women voted for Doug Jones.
Right.
Because if you isolated white women, it was
more one, almost 2-1.
Yes.
And of course, white men. Ugh.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry on behalf of all white men. 72 to 26.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Pretty.
It's really interesting that white men turned out more than white women, according to the exit poll. But black women turned out far more than black men. So it's interesting that how that worked out. So
a couple interesting things. We're looking at we'll post this link, but we're looking at the exit polls on CNN.
Yeah, definitely follow along if you can on our Facebook page. We're going to post this.
Yeah,
so you can see what we're talking about. It's really stark.
So vote by education, not too surprising. Are you a college graduate?
Oh, here we go.
If you're a college graduate, 54% of you voted for Jones, 43% for Moore.
Whites with a college degree, though. Come on. Right. 57 for Moore and 48% for Jones. Whites with no college, 77 to 22.
This is an interesting thing, though. Children under 18 in your home? Yeah. 56% to 42 for Doug Jones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
people are worried about their children.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, there was an age thing. So once you start controlling, it must be like white people over 60 must have been 90% for Moore. I know you have a pretty strong push even among white voters under the age of 45 for Jones. I mean, how could they? I just don't understand how even these older people could.
Well, the vote by age. It basically, it's pretty stark, the contrast between older voters and younger voters. So if you were looking at 18 to 44, 61% of people 18 to 44 voted for Jones to 38% for Moore.
Moore got 54-44 among 45 and older.
Right.
So we're still in the younger one, barely, but but unless.
But even if you go all the way up to age 18 to 64, Jones still wins.
Go back a bit, though. This is the part that should give us a little pause, because this started to show up in the presidential election too. Like, let's not just lull ourselves to sleep thinking demographics are completely destiny, because Jones does best among people in their 30s.
Yes.
So kind of the older millennial set into the Generation X, into the younger Generation X, older millennial crowd. Jones, 66-32. So he probably won all demographics, even whites in that age group. But actually, Moore's numbers improve against Jones and people in their 20s. Significantly. Well, it's significant by the time you compare the 18 to 24s versus the 30 to 39.
But there's also fewer. I mean,
it's not that much.
Well,
this is a significant difference.
A plurality of the vote was people, 50 to 64. That was 32% of the voters were age 50.
What I'm arguing is that very young millennials, and maybe even post-millennials, may not be as progressive as millennials, or even younger Generation Xers. There may be a generational thing. Usually in the past, in the last 10 years, The younger you go, the more Democratic you get, the less Republican you get.
You think that's maybe turning around?
Well, in this one, it seems to indicate that 18 to 24, only 59% for Jones.
To 40.
Jones gets 62 to 35, so a 27-point margin instead of a 19-point margin for 25 to 29.
Yeah.
And then 66-32, a 34-point margin. So if you look at the margins, it actually goes from 19 up to 34. That's not something to sneeze at.
True.
I mean, 18 to 24 are actually like closer in the margins to 40 to 49s are, and so I'm just wondering if it's possible that for whatever reason that the younger millennials, very young millennials, are not that progressive.
There's still. I mean, it's still a majority. It's not like it's not like it's 50-50.
Yeah, but young people in general will lean more progressive. But there's generation. I think there may be a generational thing that older millennials came of age right during the middle of the Iraq War, post 9/11. I think that might have actually permanently set in stone kind of an anti-Republican feel among them.
You got to think about. I mean, you're looking at 18 to 24 of people like under 50 that has the lowest percentage for Jones. But you have to think about these are a lot of first-time voters, and obviously, like this is a heavily promoted election in Alabama. You had a lot of probably 18-year-olds that are going out to vote for their first time. Probably a lot of their parents are taking them to the polls. You got to register, Johnny. You got to go out there and vote, and they're going to follow. A lot of them are going to follow what their parents' voting patterns are.
There may be. I'm just saying that in the Obama elections and in a lot, like all the elections from about 04 through 12, it didn't look like this. When you look at the six category age breakdown, we have 18 to 24. It was always the 18 to 24 was at least as high, if not within a point or two of the 25 to 29. Sure. The 30s, people in the 30s were more conservative.
Yeah.
People in their 40s were considerably more conservative.
I mean,
which is still the case, but you don't. Now you have the most liberal breakdown being people in their 30s, not people in their 20s.
It's something to keep an eye on. It's something to keep an eye on, but I just think that given how heavily polarized this election was, I think that there's things that may explain.
That did show up, by the way, though, in the 16 exit polls as well, presidential, and I believe in Wisconsin, and there may have been some sampling error, but actually the youngest group. Actually, supposedly went to Trump. The 18 to 24, Trump actually won it in Wisconsin. And then the 25 to 29 was overwhelmingly for Hillary.
The other way. So, there's a lot of college graduates and this and that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something going on, or maybe my real fear is. This is maybe a little too X-Files like or whatever, but is having worked with people in higher ed for several years, just talk about how like textbooks. There's a movement in recent decades to scrub in right-wing areas to scrub textbooks of like information about the civil rights movement, to scrub it of references to say.
You think that sanitization is having
these people are coming of age now, right? These people may not know
misinformation.
And I would just say this anecdotally. A colleague of mine was in Birmingham a few months ago with his family.
Yeah,
and he's like about our age, early 40s, and he was bringing his children down, and he asked. They went to the bathroom in Birmingham. They wanted to go see the Rosa Parks Museum. They went to the nicest hotel, the Pfister of Birmingham or whatever, in downtown Birmingham, because they figured those are nice places to go to the bathroom, which is what you're supposed to do if you ever read your Lonely Planet guides or whatever. That's what they tell you to do when you're traveling.
Yep.
You don't know where you are, go to a nice hotel.
Sure.
Use the bathroom there. And then he asked the concierge, where can we get a decent place for lunch near the Rosa Parks Museum? And he knew that the Rosa Parks Museum was 3 blocks away. He knew where it was. The concierge was a 21-year-old college person, and the guy said, "I don't know what that is, the Rosa Parks Museum."
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Full stop, drop mic, yeah.
Yeah.
Birmingham resident, concierge at a hotel. So I'm just wondering, and that's where the thought came to me was, is it possible that people who are 21 maybe went to school, especially in a state like Alabama, where the textbooks don't reference the civil rights movement.
Well, and these people are,
they're tread very lightly on
they're coming of age, in our current political climate, and with the things being okay that shouldn't be okay.
Right.
So that obviously is going to have some influence on young minds.
Yeah, it's scary. But the question is, like, does this guy even know who Rosa Parks is?
Or was he just bullshitting and say, like, I don't want to send you there because I disagree with the mission?
It's pretty shocking that a concierge at a downtown hotel in a big city would say that. But that,
it's either deliberate or it's not. Either way, it's bad.
I think he didn't. I honestly think he didn't know. It just makes me wonder. And one of the things, this always came up in the higher ed groups, or people involved in educational theories, that Texas was always having these pushes to purge stuff about the progressive movement, Upton Sinclair, certainly about civil rights, out of their textbooks.
Yeah.
So kids would read like a white supremacist sort of textbook, and that was a big movement in the 2000s in Texas. Texas has a lot of buying power.
Right.
They tend to dictate what the rest of the country's textbooks are. And I would imagine in other southern states they would have undue influence.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if there's something going on here where
it could be related.
Generation not being raised.
We'll have to see. I mean, we'll have to see how all the results look, about a year from now when we are in the 2018 midterms.
It kind of reminds me about reading about like North Korean education. They used to. They apparently, I had read years ago about like textbooks in North Korea and how they talk about Americans and stuff like that, and it's incredible. So,
well, I think a lot of their books are old. I think I remember watching a documentary about North Korea, and the IT books were like 30 years old. They were learning about Commodore 64 basic programming and stuff like that.
So anyway, I'm a little paranoid. I know I just wasted a lot of time on that, but
no, you're fine.
Check your kids' textbooks, people. Check your kids' textbooks. Show up at the PTA meeting. Come on, we can do this. Run for school board. Make sure that Rosa Parks is in. That's where I learned about. Where did you learn about Rosa Parks?
I think the same.
Elementary school.
Yeah,
probably about third grade.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Third, fourth grade, sometime around then. And that was in the 80s.
Right.
Right. So it would be a shame if third and fourth graders aren't learning that today.
So I'm interested in thinking about what lessons learned from Tuesday and what that's going to mean for 2018. I mean, obviously, it's inspiring to Democratic activists and people that want to get people from the quote unquote resistance elected.
I go with what Scott Ross said,
which is
let's turn out the people, women and minorities.
Yeah,
and let's make sure we have messages that relate to them. Right. In Wisconsin, I think maybe a little bit more working class because you just have a larger white population. But you make sure it's populist and it hits people at the gut level. Certainly somebody, if you're African American, who fought the Ku Klux Klan, that's got to hit you at the gut level. Versus Roy Moore, who's saying he likes it the way it was before slavery was abolished.
Right. Well, before we passed like every amendment after number 11.
Right. Right. And so I think that's one reason we thought minimum wage was the big issue. I still think wages are an issue. Where respect for working people is an issue.
Yeah.
So people being able to not live in a low wage economy is an issue.
For sure.
Their work should be worth something.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're looking at the elections here in Wisconsin. I mean, there's one in particular that stands out in terms of what elections like the one in Alabama this past week mean for us. It broke today in Politico that Paul Ryan may be considering not staying in office after 2018.
Yeah. And I don't buy it. You do?
I don't know. I mean, we're just going off of the reporting that's available to us. However,
Ryan denies it.
Well, of course he will deny it, because if he were to say that he's not going to run, they're in the midst of trying to pass the tax cut bill. It's not going to help his cause if he comes out tomorrow and says, yeah, I'm not going to run next year and I'm not going to be speaker. Immediately, he loses a lot of power in terms of wrangling his base in the House and all the different caucuses and getting them on board.
So you think he might have just, like, in a moment of weakness after Tuesday, gone out with some of his Koch brother buddies, Alec buddies. Well, I had one of those $300 bottles of wine that he likes to buy.
It's all possible. It all ties into the context of like when Paul Ryan accepted the speakership a few years back, and I mean he was resistant to taking it on. I mean he had just finished running for vice president a few years prior, and
there wasn't a single named source, I don't think, in that. Article,
no. I mean,
says a lot to me.
Well, it's anonymous sources of people that are surrounding him.
It just looked a lot like it read kind of like a National Enquirer article.
Perhaps
it's like all this.
But is it that far fetched? I mean, when you consider that he didn't really want to be speaker based on with everything that we know, and the fact that he's going to have a tough re-election.
It would be great for the country if he doesn't run.
Well, sure.
And probably good for his family. I'd like.
You like him to go back to the private.
He seems like a personally a nice enough man. Terrible on politics.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him out of.
Do you think there's any possibility that he's getting some internal polling now? It says he's in some serious trouble.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, but I also think he's going to have a lot of resources at his disposal, and he could. Have a good chance of winning. And
I think he has like 10 times the money in his account that Randy Bryce
does. Plus, to be such a big believer of his, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, Bryce has done a pretty good job of fundraising, too.
He has. He has.
I don't know. I mean, if he really believes in it, I would think he'd go down with the ship. You know, I mean, speakers of the House have been defeated for re-election before.
Yeah, but it's pretty embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
I think he'd rather. It would make sense that he would get this tax cut bill passed, and then maybe try to do something with entitlements next year, and then he just declares victory and
he
says,
doesn't want to get dragged out of the House like Omarosa may have been dragged out of the White House.
Right?
Is that what you're thinking?
Something like that. Yeah.
But maybe she left because she's upset about the net neutrality.
You think so?
Who knows?
She wouldn't be the only one.
Maybe the Apprentice will be hard to find those old videos of the Apprentice.
Yeah.
Maybe the POTUS doesn't want everybody looking at those old videos.
Something. I don't know. I mean, the whole net neutrality thing. So as those of you on the interwebs are well, as you guys are well aware, the net neutrality rules are a changing thanks to the
unfortunately.
Yeah. Thanks to the FCC. So they voted, 3-2, as you mentioned earlier.
Or fortunately, if you're tired of hearing from us.
Well, or if you just want to...
If you're tired of hearing free thought, if
you just want to go with whatever your ISP is willing to prioritize in terms of traffic. Yeah, these rules are going to be rolled back, and basically your ISP will be able to prioritize, we got a good deal with Netflix, so we're now... And then we're not going to...
Right.
Where they're not going to allow certain content to be put through at a certain rate. Otherwise, or they could go as far as breaking it all down into packages. They could say like, if you want to pay $20 a month, you could get email and some other basic browsing. But if you want Netflix and your Hulu and your Sling TV, you got to pay this much. Or if you want to have Twitter and Facebook, you got to pay this. I mean, it could all be broken down into packages, and then everybody's rates are going to go up, and then there we go. So it's basically allowing
it's fair to get the Badger politics. That's
as long as you get that package, that's all we care about.
Right. I don't know. I mean, or will you ever be able to find it? That would be the thing.
That we shall see.
So somebody, this is actually a little frustrating to me. Unfortunately, I did subscribe to the New York Times, and I can, and it never recognizes me on my mobile device or whatever. So I gotta figure that out. But anyway, So I read the first headline of it though, and where the writer describes it as no new net neutrality will be a little like searching the web in China.
Yeah, it's all filtered, it's all monitored.
Things are going to show up, and certain things won't show up.
Well, and the whole, to break it down, to simplify it, in case some of our listeners haven't really followed the nuts and bolts of this, basically under the Obama administration, what net neutrality meant is that internet service providers were basically treated like utilities. Your phone company, your electric company, others, it's not like your phone company, listens into the calls and says like, you're talking about this content, so we're going to charge you more, or we're going to not give you the throughput that is needed for that conversation to take place, or you're using this electricity to power a TV versus a lawnmower, therefore, we're going to throttle you based on that. So basically the Obama administration treated internet service providers that same way. It was just the whole idea that you're providing bandwidth, and it's up to the consumer to use that bandwidth for whatever purposes they see fit to use it for. So, but now it's all it's giving the providers the ability to nitpick and say, like, well, Paul, you're going to Facebook, so we're going to charge you X, or you're going to YouTube, we're going to charge you Y. So it's
whatever you use more, they'll charge you more.
Yes, right. It's really
sounds like a really bad.
It's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. It's a bad idea, and I don't know. To me, I guess the good thing is it's one more election issue that we can run on next year and say, hey, here's one more terrible thing.
People are able to get the information.
Well, right.
That's the scary thing about it. And to me, it seems very stifling. So this sounds very anti-competitive. It sounds like the whole reason the internet's been successful and helped drive the economy, right?
Yep.
Is that there's so much ingenuity in it.
Yes.
Now, if you take that out of the equation, Republicans are always talking about entrepreneurship. If this is going to stifle that severely.
Oh, for sure.
That's going to kill jobs like nothing else.
There's going to be a lot of stuff in the weeks ahead and going into 2018.
Dodd-Frank. I mean, if they haven't done away with it yet completely. They're getting there.
That's on the docket for sure. So this is our season finale, I guess.
Season finale for 2017. I hope you can find us in 2018.
Yeah. We'll see what the impact of net neutrality repeal is.
And hopefully we'll start to at least fix things at the state level starting next year. That's my New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
I'm making it now.
Well, it was a good week. Alabama was definitely an inspiring thing, and we'll see if we can't take some of those lessons learned and apply them to Wisconsin.
Carry this through 2 more election cycles.
Yeah.
All right,
everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2018.
Forward.